everyone, welcome back to my channel, and I think I deserve a welcome back as well because it has been quite some time. I am Leandra the TBR0. If you're new to this channel and you have no idea what I'm talking about, well then you haven't missed anything, so great. I did go on a slight hiatus mainly because I was finishing up my master's degree. I still have about a week to go before I'm officially done, which is very exciting, but I really appreciate everyone who's kind of stuck around, and I'm really excited to finally get back into the booktube community. I will say it's a bit anxiety inducing trying to post again. I've been really nervous doing this video actually, and all it is going to be a 2-month wrap up of what I read all the way back in March and what I just finished in April. But yeah, it's almost like I've got to get back on the bike again. I would say horse, but I've never been on a horse. I've met loads of horses, hundreds of horses all around the world, and I've never gotten on them. That's what I do. If you know the reference, then you know.
I've never been on a horse. Met hundreds of horses around the world. And
oh, a big shot.
But anyway, so I'm gonna try and really make this a speedy wrap up because I do have to cover 2 months, and strangely, I read 13 books in March and then 4 books in April, and I'm still really happy with the amount of books I read in April. With everything going on, I read a book a week, which is honestly something that anyone should be proud of. I was on something when it came to March. I don't know how I read as many as I did, but at this point, I'm just accepting that that was a fluke, and that is not something that anyone should be setting their standards to. I also read a couple binge-worthy series that I will get into in just a moment. If you haven't already, this is your reminder to like and subscribe. If you want to wait to see if you're going to enjoy the content, I totally understand. And there's also an incentive to wait to the end because I will be actually divulging and talking about a few live reading sprint events that I already have scheduled, and I'm really excited about them. Without further ado, I'm going to talk about the 17 books that I've read in the last 2 months, and I'm hoping to keep this video under 20 minutes. So this is going to be a rapid fire round. Wish me luck. I really don't want to have to edit this video very much, so here we go. So the first book that I read in March was The Laughing Policeman. This was by Maj Chauval and Per Wahlöö. They are Swedish duo writers. They were known for writing the Martin Beck series, which The Laughing Policeman is a part of. This was originally published in Swedish in 1968. It was then almost immediately published in English, translated in 1970. So clearly there was a pretty large English-speaking reading population that was already hungry for these books. So it's kind of been described as like a modern classic for Nordic noir, and I totally agree. It definitely has hard-boiled elements. It's a bit grittier. It's set in Stockholm, and you know, the Nordic countries are often viewed as this idyllic version of society, but these authors definitely get into the nitty-gritty and criticize some of the infrastructure that goes on in Sweden, and by proxy they also criticize America, and that's because the main event, the main mystery that this particular story is set around is a mass shooting event set on a bus where no one survives besides one person who's in critical condition, and one of the victims was a detective, a part of the Stockholm Police Department. So everyone's wondering what is going on, what's his connection, is this a fluke, why was he on the bus? Nobody really knows, and things just get more and more complicated as the story goes. I really enjoyed it. It was a book that was already on my shelf, so it was part of my physical TBR, and it was also part of She Done It's book club for April. I read it a month ahead of time because I work for She Done It, and this was part of our translation month, and I really enjoyed it. There are a few things that I will say, oh my god, I'm already taking forever talking about the first book. I will say that some things didn't age super well, including the author's view on like women and sexuality and sexual freedom, which I just don't think would fly today. It definitely is set in the 60s, and I fully understand like how that almost acts as a time capsule. But I did give it 4 stars, and I would certainly read another book by this duo again. Book number 2, A Burst of Light and Other Essays. This was by Audre Lorde. She is a well-known Black lesbian feminist. She wrote poetry. That's something I really want to delve into more when I start to read more of her canon. I have read Sister Outsider by her, which was another collection of essays. Absolutely adored it. Gave that one 5 stars. This one I gave 4 stars. I still found it really powerful. Most of it does center around letters or journal entries that she wrote during 3 years of her struggling with cancer, which again, I found thought-provoking, but it wasn't exactly the content I was looking for. There is one essay about S&M practices and how it relates to oppression. I didn't think of it that way, and I just found her perspective really unique on the subject, so I highly recommend it. And yeah, 4 stars. Moving on. So then I read Citizen by Claudia Rankine. This was actually an assigned reading for my classes this semester. I was taking a poetry class, and so this is deemed poetry. It's more prose poetry / essays, because there is a lot of like essay elements to it, and basically Rankine is criticizing the various microaggression all the way to physical violence going on with racial issues in America, but also across the world. She certainly doesn't just focus on the United States. She shows that it's a global problem, and I really appreciated that. She speaks in the you person, like in second person, which kind of forces us to put ourselves in those shoes, and made me kind of question my own prejudices, my own thoughts, and I really appreciated it. I found it really thought-provoking, and it's just a bit experimental the way she sets it on the page and includes certain images and artwork in the book itself, and so I definitely recommend that, and I gave that 4 stars too. I also read Rosewood by Sayantani Dasgupta. So this was actually not part of my physical TBR as the first 3 were. This one was a promotional read. I received a finished copy as a gift from Scholastic Press, and I really do appreciate it. It was such a lovely, lovely read, and I did end up giving it 4 stars. Basically, Dasgupta reimagines very loosely Sense and Sensibility. She has another book called Debating Darcy, which is a much closer, I think, connection to obviously Pride and Prejudice, but this one is very much loose. She's very open about that, and I actually think that allows more room for growth in the story. It allows the characters to spread their wings and be their own people, especially because she includes so many important BIPOC and LGBT voices and commentary, especially when it comes to the entertainment industry and how much it still needs to grow and allow for there to be diversity in representation. So I loved that. And basically what happens is, in this YA contemporary romance, we have Rosewood Camp Rosewood, and Rosewood is actually a TV series in this fictional world that is pretty much Bridgerton meets Murder, She Wrote. So there's murder mysteries going on in the Regency area, and at this camp, these characters are pretty much trying to find their way onto the script, either as an extra or possibly as a leading character, and just crazy things ensue. I loved the chaos of it. I loved the humor. I loved all the references to Jane Austen, as well as a lot of references to Shakespeare, which was serendipitous because I was also taking a Shakespeare course this semester. So I loved it all around. I'm so glad that I own it, thanks to Scholastic Press, and I can't recommend it enough for those who really enjoy YA and really enjoy even just a little hints of Jane Austen in their books. Moving on to what I think will be pretty quick recommendations also for everybody else, and that's the Lore Olympus series. It's a graphic novel series. They have published up to this point volume 3. It's by Rachel Smythe, and in March I read volumes 1 and 2, and I actually read the 3rd volume in April, so I might as well just talk about all 3 of them, and I gave all 3 of them 5 stars. They were great. So as I said, they're graphic novels. They are retellings or reimaginings of Greek mythology, specifically Hades and Persephone's story. It is reimagined as like a romance, as, you know, 2 characters we actually would root for. The original story is obviously very much not the case. Some people do have some issues with the content, but Smythe is very upfront at the beginning of each volume about the content warnings, and there is some controversy surrounding the age gap between the 2 love interests. I'm okay with it because I can separate how that actually relates more to the Greek mythology aspect as opposed to the modern elements that are infused throughout these volumes, because Persephone is attending college, Hades is basically like the CEO of hell, people have cell phones, all these things. So she does infuse a lot of modern technology and influence into it, but I really enjoyed it, and I think that as someone who is usually intimidated by Greek retellings, because I know that I'm not an expert on any of these original stories, I felt like this was a great stepping stone for me to feel comfortable and just enjoy the story as it is. And the illustrations are really pretty and lovely, and I do at one point want to own them, but all 3 of them were one-sitting reads and also borrowed from the library. Okay, awesome. So that's 5, 6, 7. Now we are on book 8, and that is Deadline at Dawn. This was technically the 7th book I read in March, and it's by Cornell Woolrich. This one is actually a hard-boiled classic published back in 1944, and I have mixed feelings about hard-boiled as a genre. I haven't usually found any books that I just adore because there's usually so many problematic elements, whether it be sexism, misogyny, horrific depictions of anyone who is not like the whitest of white, and it's really disappointing that that genre has almost become defined by the problems and issues that just haven't really aged very well because human rights exist. Anyway, so what I was surprised was just how much I did actually enjoy this. So Deadline at Dawn, again, it's set in 1944, was published in 1944, set in New York City, and the city is very much a huge part of this setting. It's a huge influence and driving factor for the two main characters, Bricky and Quinn, and they are an investigating duo, but they're pretty much strangers who just have to put their trust in each other. The mystery happens in over a 6-hour time period, so it's very high intense, definitely adds that hard-boiled action that is also well known in the genre, and I just loved Bricky as this strong woman character who pretty much gears the investigation, and Quinn is a bit more sensitive and he relies on Bricky a significant amount. I just really like their dynamic, and the city is genuinely another character. Apparently Woolrich was inspired by F. Scott Fitzgerald, so a lot of his writing does kind of mirror that, and I fully can see that. This is just such a great time-sensitive mystery that's just really fun, and I am so glad I own it. This is another book that I happen to own, and yeah, I can totally see myself reading it more and more. I gave it 4 stars. There was just one element that did kind of bleed into those controversial aspects of the genre that I talked about before, certain phonetic leanings that I don't know why the author made these choices, but he did decide to depict certain Black characters phonetically spelled in the way that they were speaking compared to any other character who was white, which I just didn't think was necessary. It was really annoying, but it only happens like twice, and so I didn't feel right giving it 5 stars, so I'm giving it 4 because, like, what the fuck. Anyway, so now I am on to the 8th book of the month, and that was The Girl with the Dragon Fruit Tattoo by Carrie Doyle. This was a recent publication, 2023, and it was a Netgalley arc, and this is the 3rd book in the Trouble in Paradise series. It's a modern cozy. I've read the first 2 books as well, and I just have a nice soft place in my heart for Plum Lockhart, probably because she kind of reminds me of Death in Paradise, the whole idea of someone who's very much not from any type of relaxed setting and being forced to enter this tropical place and just accept the fact that like everyone else is far more at ease and she's the one who needs to kind of like unwind herself a little bit. And she's also just have this found family. Every time we enter the story, she's getting a little bit closer to the community. They're a bit more accepting of her. She is actually from New York City, and she moves to Paraíso, which is this fictional island in the Caribbean. And yeah, it's just like she's really kind of growing to become a local in a sense and be a bit more protective of her community, and I love to see it. The only thing about this 3rd mystery to know is that it is set as kind of like a travel mystery in the sense that it's mainly set on a yacht, and I think that's almost what dampened the story for me a bit. I did give this book 3 stars, mainly because we lost the community aspect that I just adored so much. She didn't have Juan Kevin nearly as much in this story, who is Plum Lockhart's love interest. We also didn't have her kind of love-hate best friend Gerald. We didn't have Lucia. I really wish that we had that community, that support system that Plum has become so dependent on, because now everyone just is horrible. Like, I didn't like anybody. I didn't really care who did the crime because they all were terrible. So that's basically my thoughts on that. I can see myself trying the series again though, because I did really enjoy books 1 and 2, gave those 4 stars, and so we'll see what happens with book 4 when it finally comes out. The 9th book that I read in March, and also the 10th and 11th books, were all part of a series. Like I said, a lot of these are binge-worthy series, and that is the Ice Planet Barbarian series. So book 1 was Ice Planet Barbarians, the next one was Barbarian Alien, and the 3rd one was Barbarian Lover. All 3 I ended up getting through Hoopla as audiobooks, and I gave books 1 and 3 3 stars, and I gave the 2nd book 5 stars. It was more of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I got to read it with Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, including book 3, and I had so much fun with it. But basically this series is a sci-fi romance, very new for me. I had never really read sci-fi romance before, and while the romances are definitely heavy in this, that's the main focus, I was more impressed by how complex the world is. Ruby Dixon certainly provides plot. She also provides certain rules for the society, for the world, because we do have 2 species coming together. One species is the planet that's currently on this planet, and then the humans who were originally kidnapped, dropped off at this planet just as cargo. They are now trying to survive in this very ice cold element, and just like the two species, for survival and just necessity, they need to learn how to adapt to each other, learn each other's languages, and it's a lot more complicated than you think. And the romances are great too. I love Georgie and Vectal. I really enjoyed Kira and her romantic love interest in book 3. And of course, the book that I gave 5 stars, I cannot remember the 2 main characters' names. It doesn't matter though. I adored them. I gave the book 5 stars anyway. I don't care that I can't remember their names. But I highly recommend you read the series if you actually want a bit of fun. And I promise you, it's not this like weird, strange kind of thing. Like, you really get into the world, you just accept everything, and it's awesome. And there's a lot of humor. There's so much humor in this. I found myself laughing aloud a lot. So Ruby Dixon has fun with the fact that all of this is just utter chaos. I also have to note that another book I read in April was actually book 4 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, Barbarian Mine. I gave that one 3 stars as well, but if I had to do the order, I probably would say book 2, then maybe book 3, mainly because the love interests are just amazing, and I would do anything for Ayako, who is the love interest of Kira. And then I would say book 1 and then book 4. Another thing to note is that in book 1 there is a significant amount of trauma and content warnings in the first couple chapters. Since then, I haven't really experienced any of that. I know that Ruby Dixon apparently returns to this in the series, but just note that, check to see what you can handle, and just know that it's mainly not in the rest of the series that I've gotten to thus far. Oh my gosh, okay, moving forward. So the next book that I ended up reading in March, second to last, was People Love Dead Jews by Dara Horn. We're certainly taking I don't know, a turn left field. We're turning a U-turn here because this is also, my chair is really loud. I'm getting distracted, it's fine. So with People Love Dead Jews, this is basically a memoir that's also very heavily research-based and focused on historical references, personal anecdotes from Horn, and interviews that she has done over the years. And it's really poignant, and she pretty much just looks into why is it that the world, and especially the American people, have this obsession with dead Jews, specifically say like the Holocaust, and just how this continues to repeat throughout history. It was really thought-provoking. I cried multiple times. The first chapter focuses on Anne Frank, and it really opened my eyes. Horn is an expert in Yiddish and Hebrew literature. She's Jewish herself as well. And I really appreciated her as this authoritative voice, sifting through this almost marketability about her people, though, like the religion and culture that she grew up with. And it was really amazing. And I'm so appreciative that my local library had this book available. I did see that the audiobook is available either through Hoopla or Libby for certain libraries. I had the physical copy, but I can't recommend it enough. And also, we are now in May, and May is Jewish American Heritage Month, so I just think it's serendipitous. I really can't convey to you enough that you should try to read it, if not this month, any month, because educating yourself on other people's experiences is always beneficial. 5 stars, hands down. And then my final book is Black Sad by Juan Diaz Canales. So this was another translation, which is interesting, and another graphic novel. It was 3 volumes in one. I got this from the library, and the illustrations are gorgeous. It is definitely inspired by hard-boiled noir. The author originally wrote this in Spanish. It was translated into English, and it's really fascinating. Like, the mysteries were really high action. It made me think of like action heroes, but again, grittier in regards to this seedy detective. And all of the characters, though, experience this kind of like zoomorphism, where they're all animals in this humanistic world. And so, yeah, they're all like animorphs, I guess you can say. In a way, that's all I can think of is in comparison. And I thought it was really interesting. I did give it 3 stars, mainly because it was a bit hard to like get into the story and like fully accept certain endings. But yeah, like I said, the illustrations were gorgeous and fascinating. There's a lot of commentary on race as well, which I really appreciated. I found this to be really fascinating and really gravitating. Not only race, but again, to bring back this idea of Judaism and being persecuted for being Jewish. That is definitely echoed in this book as well. The one thing to note is, because it is hard-boiled fiction, of course there's going to be some objectification of women, which is very frustrating. Like I said, all of the characters are like animals, but what I noticed is that the women characters seem to be a bit more human in regards to their anatomy compared to the men, which was just really frustrating. I totally can see that being affected by the fact that this author is Spanish, and I know that gender roles and the kind of issues in regards to gender equality is especially lower in certain romantic language countries, certain, you know, like Spanish and Italian and those types of areas. And also just, again, being set in like the 1950s, 1940s, I could see him arguing that he can kind of stay true to the genre's original time period, whatever. But I did give it 3 stars. And yeah, I thought it would be fascinating, say, to talk about in like an academic classroom, even though it's like this random graphic novel book. I totally think that graphic novels should be discussed more often in academia. Oh my gosh, okay, I've got 2 more books. I just hit 20 minutes, that's fine. So the final 2 books that I actually read in April, because the first 2 were Lore Olympus Volume 3 and Barbarian Mine. I ended up reading Death and Croissants by Ian Moore. That was a Netgalley arc, and I just had so much fun with it. It's definitely mainstream, cozy mystery, reminded me of Thursday Murder Club, for instance, because we do have this small village. It's set in France, but the main character is British, Richard, and becomes his kind of sidekick duo, but really it's a very much a partnership of equals. Valerie, she's this ambitious, like very outgoing, beautiful woman who 100% is just trying to decipher Richard because he's this bumbling English man in the French countryside, and he's always a step behind, but I really enjoyed that aspect. He made me think of like Hugh Grant with like the kind of like stuttering and stopping and being awkward, and I adored that. It's very funny, and the author is a comedian, Ian Moore. He's an English comedian, so I totally can see where the humor is coming through, and it's very chaotic. It's very much like, it kind of reminds me where there's some espionage elements to it, especially because like the mafia is involved in this, there's bounty hunters involved. It's a wild ride, and I really just embraced it. I embraced the hilarity of it, and I can't wait to read book 2, which is Death and Fromage, I believe. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It was just a really good time. If you like Death in Paradise, I recommend that one for you. And finally, I ended up reading A Half-Baked Murder by Emily George, and this was another modern cozy. It was also an ARC, but I do have the physical copy because I was gifted it by Kensington, so thank you so much, Kensington, because this is gonna definitely become one of my newest favorite series. I again fell in love with the world. So what happens is Chloe, she is this pastry chef. She has been trained in Paris. She was living in Paris, and then her entire life ends up kind of being derailed. One, because her grandmother, who practically raised her, ends up having this cancer diagnosis, and then her fiance in France is found to, you know, have committed infidelity. So she runs back home to live with her grandmother to help Grandma Rose through this process of her illness, and she just completely runs away from Paris and returns to Azalea Bay, California, and she's kind of trying to figure out what's going on. Her very zany, awesome, hippie-ish aunt, Dawn, gives her this bright idea that because she's been making her grandmother special brownies, she should actually open up a cannabis cafe. It's this niche cafe, no one else has it in the area, and Chloe thinks this is actually a great idea. So as they're in the process of doing this, she finally feels like her life is getting on track. There's a murder, and it's directly involved with her and her aunt is actually the main suspect, and she needs to try to figure out who actually did this in order to protect her aunt and just like get on with her life and protect her family, because she's very productive, and I love it. I really enjoyed it. I love the idea of it being a cannabis cafe, because it's as if it's showing that the cozy modern mystery can modernize. It can keep up with the times, and I feel like legalized cannabis in the United States, it's growing, but there's still a huge taboo about it, and there's a huge population a diverse population that utilizes cannabis in various ways that can be just so beneficial to them. We've got anxiety, we've got chronic pain, obviously I mentioned cancer because of her Grandma Rose, and it's just, I really appreciated how Emily George handled that and trying to like show people that you don't have to be comfortable with doing it yourself, but like there's so many other reasons why people may want to include it in their lives. So yeah, I really appreciated that. There's also some notes of like childhood neglect, because Chloe did experience that with her mother. There's also references to eating disorders and an attempt at sexual assault, and I think that George handles them all really well. There is only one aspect, which was eating disorders, that I would have liked the characters to be a bit more knowledgeable about when it came to like reasons for why people might develop an eating disorder. It's not necessarily or only the idolization of thinness in society, but in the end, she does kind of allude to other options and other reasons for why someone might experience that. So just overall, I just had fun. It was the perfect change for me because I was going through my master's thesis and trying to like finalize things and like had all these like academic responsibilities in my brain. So I just love being able to escape to Azalea Bay and just like enjoy it. So yeah, thank you so much, Emily George, for that. I appreciate it. 4 stars. It's the first in the new Cannabis Cafe series with Kensington, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Oh my gosh, I did it. I'm so proud of myself. Okay, so that was March and that was April. And just for another breakdown, because I already had it written down, but I totally forgot to say, because I am Leandra the TBR Zero, my goal is to focus on my physical TBR. I'm pretty proud of what happened. So I ended up reading 17 books in the last 2 months. 4 of them were physical TBR. And while that doesn't seem like a lot, I will say that 9 of them were from the library, whether it be an ebook, an audiobook, or the physical book. So that 100%, you know, I think that adds to the cause, me supporting my library and not adding new books to my shelves, so I'm totally down for that. I had 1 promo finished copy of a book, which was Rosewood, and that's actually right here. I might as well take my time and showcase it a little bit, the physical copy. Adored it. And then I had 3 arcs. And I believe all 3, 2 of them were e-arcs, and then the other one from Kensington was a physical arc. So yeah, like, I'm really proud of that. I'm happy about it, and we're just gonna keep trucking on. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much. You now get to enjoy me explaining the fact that I've got 2 reading sprints planned. One of them is this Saturday. The first 4 hours are on Brittany from Brittany Loves Readings channel, and the second 4 hours are gonna be on my channel, and it's because we have brought back Planet Barbarian's reading sprints. We had so much fun. Other people who participated last time had so much fun, and I can't wait to get back into it. I can't wait to be able to talk animatedly with Brittany about it. We are starting on book 5. You certainly don't have to be reading the series. You don't have to be reading book 5 if you are. Read whatever you want. Just join the fun, and I can't wait to see what you guys are reading and what you're going to be doing, and I can't wait to see what else happens on this chaotic science fiction romance series train that we are on together. I will make sure to put a link in the description for both Brittany's channel / her sprinting time, so you can be notifying what is going on, so you can get notified by her, and then for mine too, so you can make sure to notify yourself when that's happening. And finally, another reading sprint event that I'm planning is actually thanks to Brooklyn from Brooklyn Reads. She is hosting this readathon, this read-along for Hooked, which is by Emily McIntyre. It is a part of the series, I think it's like the Never After series, and there's 4 books that I know of, and each one follows one of the villains in a classic Disney retelling. The first one that we're reading, Hooked, is actually following like Hook from Peter Pan, which is just really fascinating. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm already halfway through it and I think it's crazy. I'm having a really good time, and I can't wait to keep going on with it. But that will be happening. Sprints that I will be hosting via Brooklyn will actually be next Friday, so that is May 12th, and I can't remember if I said it at 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll have to check, but I'll put that down in the link below. Oh my gosh, this was lovely. I'm so glad I ripped the band-aid off when it comes to returning to YouTube. So thanks everybody for your support. I really do appreciate it. You will be seeing more of me, whether it be in video form or in the comments, because I very much want to support everybody else too. Let me know what you've been reading recently, your thoughts, and yeah, I can't wait to see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, have a great day. Okay, bye!